Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. The highlight of my reading week this week is that I have 2 bail redemptions. I bail fairly heavily. So far this year I have about 20 bails. But sometimes these bails don't sit right with me because it might not necessarily be the book. It might be my mental state or my physical state or just not the right time or any number of reasons. So I will not infrequently give many of the books I bail on a second or third or sometimes more chances, what I call bail redemptions. If I successfully bail redeem a book, I call those bail redemption achieved. If, however, I continue to bail on that book, they are bail redemption rejections. And this week I have 2 successful bail redemptions. Unfortunately, there is a blot on my reading week, and so I'm going to touch on those books first. My original plan for this reading week was to end June with manga. Over the weekend, I would read volumes of One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. I'm currently collecting them in 3-volume omnibus editions. And over the course of a weekend, I can get 4 of them read for a total of 12 volumes. Unfortunately, I only managed 1 omnibus edition, and I've already talked about that volume in last week's Weekly Reads because making last week's Weekly Reads was a pain in the rear end. I tried to make that video, and my Chromebook just would not save any of the successful Weekly Reads. So eventually I managed to get one to work. So on Monday I decided to try out some new series. What I do with new series is I will pick up a first volume and collect first volumes until I have a sufficient amount to read them all at once. And so I selected 3 first volumes and read them on Monday, and it did not go well at all. So first up is Kill Blue, Volume 1 by Tadatoshi Fujimaki. This is a series about a 40-something hitman named Juzo Ogami. This is him on the back, who is a famous hitman. One day while doing a job, he kills a bunch of goons and accidentally brings home a genetically engineered wasp that stings him, resulting in him becoming a 12-year-old. And he basically is then assigned by his boss to investigate the school that the boss's daughter is thinking about applying for in the next academic school year. So he infiltrates the school and all sorts of shenanigans happen. I did not like where this story was going, so I will not be continuing with Kill Blue. I thought I think the problem is that the story immediately began to deviate from that setup. And it didn't work for me. The second volume I tried was Akane-banshi by Yuki Suenaga and Takamasa Moue. So this is the story of a Well, the first chapter is about a man who was studying Rakugo, and he's hoping to advance in rank. However, at the end of that chapter, he and all of the other students at his Rakugo school are expelled. And he gives up on his dream of becoming a professional storyteller, and he goes into salaryman work. 6 years later, his daughter becomes a student of Rakugo herself, hoping to gain a measure of justice for her father by achieving what he could not. Again, I just really did not connect with this series, so I will not be continuing. Those two failures led me to decide not to try my luck with Undead Unluck Volume 1 by Yoshifumi Tozuka. So this is the story of a young girl with superpowers who encounters a undead dude, this guy here, who teams up with her in the hopes that her powers can eventually kill him or something like that. So I might come back to this later when I get a few more first volumes, and hopefully things will work out. But I have noticed lately over the last week or so that maybe I ought to take a bit of a break from manga. That is certainly something to think about. Anyway, moving on to the Bell Redemptions. I Bell redeemed Psyche Running, Selected Poems 2005 to 2022 by Durs Grunbein, translated from the German by Karen Leeder. So this is a selected collection of Durs Grunbein's poetry. Durs Grunbein is one of the major German poets currently writing today. And he is also one of the most prolific, I would assume. I tried this book the previous weekend. I Bell redeemed it on this past Sunday. And I don't know what... Well, I haven't been feeling great mentally or physically the last few weeks. And I'm thinking that probably had something to do with that wasted weekend when I tried to read A Psyche Running for the first time. But I was feeling a call to give this book a second chance this past weekend, and I decided on Sunday to do so, and I'm very glad I did. I quite enjoyed this Bell Redemption. It was a lot of fun, and I definitely like this collection a lot more than my initial attempt at this book would have led me to believe. There are a lot of good poems in this collection. And then starting July 1st, I read Devotions, the selected poems of Mary Oliver by, of course, Mary Oliver. So I read this, or I tried to read this, earlier in June, and I didn't get on with it. I read 100, maybe a little more than 100 pages, and I just was not connecting to the poetry. This Bell Redemption was definitely a lot more successful. I did connect to the poetry a lot more, although I can't say that Mary Oliver will be one of my favorite poets. I think I'm only going to have this one collection of hers in my collection. But I did enjoy it, and I'm happy to report that I did persevere with this book even when I was titanically upset. This past Thursday, yesterday, the 3rd of July, I was really angry, and this book helped calmed me down. So, quite happy about that. And there are quite a lot of good poems in here. I don't think Mary Oliver will be one of my favorite poets going forward. So that leads me to what I will be reading this week. Now, my original plan for the weekends of July would be sort of shifting between volumes of Twin Star Exorcists by Yoshiaki Sukeno and Lost World by Clark Ashton Smith. I do 6 volumes on Saturday and read however many short stories, and then so on and so forth, until I read the 18 volumes of Twin Star Exorcists I need to get caught up. And then try to finish Lost Worlds. But I'm also not super enthusiastic about that idea. As I mentioned earlier, maybe I should take a little bit of a break from manga for the time being until I'm really ready for it. And as I've mentioned a few times, I'm not really super excited about Rocket Summer, the booktube event created by Michael K. Vaughan, in which participants read vintage science fiction during the month of July. I've lost a lot of my interest in prose form science fiction and fantasy, so I'm not entirely sure. This is definitely an option, and I might decide to go ahead and read these anyway, but there is definitely a possibility that I will try to read some drama over the weekend. Probably Skin of Our Teeth by Thornton Wilder, and Picnic by William Inge. And then over the course of the work week, I'm not entirely sure. There's going to be a bit of a disruption on Tuesday. I'm not entirely sure how much reading I'll be able to get done that day. So I'm not entirely sure what I will do. Again, I could probably also do, if I don't decide to do the drama over the weekend, I could definitely do them during the work week. And then see where that leads me. Anyway, BookTube, that's all I have for this week. I will see you next week with more videos. What they will be, I don't know. I've been wanting to try to make some videos, and they are just not working out. And I either need to try to come at them from different angles or just give up on them. But anyway, I will definitely see you next week. So until then, BookTube, thank you. Have a great evening and weekend, and stay safe.